Okay, everybody out there in YouTube land, welcome to tonight's big program. I am your host, the founder and head game master here at Manufactured Myth and Legerdemain, Matt Yancik, and welcome to an episode of GMs in the Machine. So, with every sporadic every once in a while episode that I manage to put out, I like to bring you a different game master who comes on the program and breaks down an adventure as we sort of design. Actually, as the GM designs, and I just ask a lot of questions and interrupt their style and flow and irritate them. But it's all in the name of learning and fun and goofiness. So thank you very much for joining us on the program. I want to mark a very special occasion here. We just passed an astounding 400 subscribers. Ladies and gentlemen, there's a single tear going down my cheek. I'm sure most of it was probably because Scotty advertised this 1 or 2 days ago. And for those of you that pity subscribed to my channel, I'm going to have a glass of water for you. Refreshing. Oh, now I feel better. But at any rate, thank you very much for tuning in. If you haven't pity subscribed to my channel, please consider pity subscribing. There is a like button down there and a subscribe button. I tried to customize it so it says like pity subscribe, but YouTube hasn't given me, I haven't unlocked that privilege yet. I believe I actually have to go below 1 subscriber in order to get that. But we'll see. I'm quickly we'll find out based on the results of tonight's program. At any rate, I do have a very special guest on today who I am excited to talk to. But I want to actually just sort of mention to everybody that I've been doing these a lot recently. I've just had some really good luck getting some really cool people coming on. I'm glad you tuned in for tonight's program, but we will be back next week, next Monday. I am actually going to have Little Red Dot on the program, and for anybody that has ever watched her actual plays, they are really great. And what I'm excited about is the fact that she's going to be on not just to talk about building an adventure, but also maybe to talk a little bit about how she runs her actual plays. But at any rate, that's coming in the future, and that's nothing to worry about tonight because I have an extra special episode with a super cool guest, a super friend of the channel who occasionally comes down from Mount Olympus and he reaches down with one mighty hand and pulls me up just a little bit. He sprinkles me with subscribers. Tonight, I have none other than DM Scotty McFarland, who has been really helpful to me, just as and a bit of an inspiration to me as a YouTuber and just as a gamer, to be honest. So Scotty's doing a lot of the things that I've always sort of hoped to do with my interest in gaming, and one of those things which is just between you, me, Scotty, and the 400 and two other people that have pity subscribed is he's come out with his own game, which I'm really happy to say when I have friends that create things, sometimes it's awkward because they'll turn to me and go, "Well, Matt, I wrote a screenplay and it was made into a film. Did you go see it?" And I'll have to say, uh, 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 yeah. What did you think of it? It was interesting. And it's sometimes awkward because sometimes when friends come out with things like that, you want to be really positive and you want to support them and let them know all the great things that they've done with their creation. But you know, sometimes it's a little hard. But with Scotty's new game, relatively new game, EZD6. And again, this is not like an advertisement for his game, and he probably didn't really know I was going to say any of this stuff. He's really inspired me because what he's created here is a very an elegantly simple system in which to create a framework for having great adventures with your friend. I was chatting with him just before the program, and I was talking about one of the uh, great points of the game, and this is going to sound odd, is how small, simple, and literally portable it is. Uh, you can run EZD6 almost actually without even having, if you've just run a few games and practiced a few times, you could create characters and run the game with the core mechanic almost without the book itself. And as a matter of fact, I've actually been running a version of the game using the Forgotten Realms, this old box set that I have. I'm running a game right now for a couple of friends, and it's a small, kind of intimate, private game, just with like some friends of mine and I. And it's been going so well. We're all big EZD6 fans, we're Forgotten Realms fans. We like to tell stories, and when you kind of combine all of those three things together, the most important thing about the system I can kind of, think of right now is that it uh, really helps you tell those stories that are going to be meaningful, and those stories you're going to remember for ages to come. So now, without any further ado, because I've said this before, my mother gets angry when I give really long monologues. Let's get to DM Scotty McFarland. That's the real person that you've come here to see. DM Scotty, my goodness, welcome to the program.
Hey,
Is
thank you,
everything
Matt.
okay there? It appears that something is burning behind you. Are you at Wizards of the Coast right now? There appears to be a fire. Are you at Wizards of the Coast, or are you
No, I'm in
home?
my own secret dungeon lair,
Okay, all right, got it. I just wanted to make sure. For a moment there, I thought that
which is totally real behind me.
the building was burning around you, and I naturally assumed it was Wizards of the Coast. It's
Oh, I get it.
just a little joke, folks.
Oh, there we go.
Just a little OGL
Dig,
humor
dig.
in the spirit of running different systems. So Scotty, can you tell us a little bit about? Of course, I've told everybody how great Easy D6 is, but
I
can you
appreciate
tell
that.
them why? Tell them a little bit about the mechanic, and tell them a little bit about how it works.
Yeah, I think I think maybe because I approach the game differently than a game designer might.
Hmm.
Um, when I approach the game, I said, okay, let me see if I can make a game that totally just runs well at the table, right? And any mechanic that doesn't run well at the table, I'm going to pitch. So that was what I did. I didn't come up with some weird abstract mechanic and
Yeah.
then, make a game around it or whatever. You roll 14d6 and then times it by 2 and then, subtract 3 or whatever. I'm like, how much can I take out but still make a solid game? And as I was playtesting that and just removing stuff and,
Yeah.
it just got better and better. The pace at the table was crazy fun. No one had to look up rules,
Mm.
which is a crazy thing to say with a role playing game. How many role playing games can you say that? Unless you're a savant, that you never have to look up rules, right?
Right.
And the pace would get so crazy and the people would get so excited because there was no rules breaks, what I
Yeah.
call rules breaks, where okay, rules breaks, you got to stop and do something, right? To make the story progress.
Yeah.
So, in D&D, you got to roll your D20, you got to check the armor class. Okay, what's the armor class? Tell me the armor class. All right, you got to add your bonus to that. Okay, let me see. Okay, I hit the armor class. Okay, now I got to roll my damage. So
Mm.
we're not done yet. Now I roll my damage. Okay, there's the damage. All right, then the DM subtracts it. And all that time, the story is slammed to a stop and people are looking at their phones, right?
Yeah.
But in EZD6, the turns go so fast.
Yes.
You don't that doesn't happen. That doesn't happen. And it also turns out that, with the damage and the criticals get everybody excited. But I also have armor saves instead of armor class, so you never have to ask anybody in armor class, right?
Right. Right.
I'll just tell you what the number is to hit, and that's just like you always roll that. Like, most of the time it's 3 to hit something. Like there's some time if it's different, I'll tell you. but it's usually just 3. So, but also characters roll armor class. They don't have armor class. They roll their armor to deflect blows. So you're never off turn, right? Because if I'm attacking you, the group of the monsters or monster, you're on point,
Right.
because if I attack you, you have to roll your save.
Right.
Right. So you're not like, oh, I took my turn, now I've got 15 minutes till it comes back around to my turn.
Yes. Well, that is definitely something that I remember. So in the interest of full disclosure, maybe it was a year and a half or so ago, Scotty play tested with myself and some of the guys from my channel, and he ran it for us. And the thing that kind of impressed me um, was how everything was kind of like I'm not even sure how to explain this, but everything was so simple that it was very easy to find a spot for everything. So for example, in some other games, some of the equipment, some of the abilities or skills or whatever, they are so I don't want to say focused, but they're so specific that sometimes I'll have like I try to give my players moments to use their stuff, but sometimes they're just confounded and are unable to do all of the things that they want to do. They build their character and they want to do all of the cool stuff that their character can do, and yet they have to wait for like a special moment to use it, or they have to wait for me to come in and create a moment and sort of in the background work a scenario out where they can go ahead and use that ability or talent or weapon. But the thing that impressed me was that I was able to build my character. And I remember, like, actually at the end of the very first game that we play tested with you, and it wasn't streamed, so if anybody goes looking for it, sorry, it's not up. Yeah, it was. And by the way, Scotty, I did send you those NDA forms, those non-disclosure agreements in triplicate. And, I know your lawyer has been in touch
I've
to
got them
me,
filed. Yeah.
in touch with me about that. So yeah, okay, everything here. But at any rate, what I remember at the end of the session is that all of the equipment I had and the skills or abilities are, and you have terminology for a game, but I used everything at the end of like a 4 hour adventure. And I feel like that's a rare thing. Like usually if I'm constructing something for, oh, I don't know, D&D, if I'm doing something for them, I need to play the character over several sessions in order to really like use everything. But with EZD6, I really felt like I was able to sort of just jump in there and I could do anything. To be honest, like I could use my stuff in a way that contributed to the story and contributed to the adventure. And I think that's one of the great things about the system. It's deceptively simple, but because it's so simple, it gets out of the way, and so you're able to just sort of, instead of thinking about how am I going to use this skill, how am I going to use this skill, you just sort of look down at your sheet, or you basically you don't even really have to a lot of times because you can kind of carry your character in your head, and you're able to just sort of be your character, and it frees not just the GM up in like focusing on adventures, but it also frees the player up so they can just really be that character. Um, so at any rate, that's my 2 cents. I'm
I
excited to
totally
have you.
agree.
Oh,
I totally agree. And that's one thing I love about it. That's one thing I love about it.
I'm super happy to have you on the program because I am now in the unique position of not just talking to the guy that created EZD6, but also talking to a guy that's created adventures that I've really enjoyed, playing in and reading with some of your published works. And now we're all going to get a little bit of a window which we may open up a little bit. We may decide to close it at a certain point. I don't know how much we want to see
Hmm.
into the mine there, but
Yep.
we're going to be
Yep.
looking at what goes on in DM Scotty's brain when he's designing an adventure for his players. Um, so, Scotty, can you tell us a little bit about, like, can you give us anything about, have you thought anything about what you want to sort of do tonight, or are we starting from scratch? It's really okay to go both ways. I'm
I,
just kind of
I,
curious.
yeah, I do have an idea what I want to do tonight.
Cool. And you're thinking of?
So the adventure, uh, I wanted to do this would be a one-off, and I wanted
Okay.
to do a weird adventure that is not a standard D&D adventure, right? It's really kind of strange, and you're feeling like you're in kind of bizarre land, right? But not goofy bizarre land, right? Not like an Alice, type adventure, more like a creepy what the heck is going on here adventure. Um and that's kind of where I started, right?
Mm.
Although I do kind of have a weird title
I'm
for
fine
the
with that.
the
So
adventure.
I'm totally fine with that. Like I think the more interesting and the weirder the better. But I think whatever you kind of create tonight, what I'm most interested in is just sort of hearing about like how you're creating it and sort of following along with that process. So I am sure that whatever it's going to be, it'll be interesting to gain some insights into how you do it. So
Oh
before the
yes.
program, one of the things that I often ask GMs to do is just maybe to send me pictures or send me like illustrations or something. And indeed, I can confirm they were some very weird, odd, and bizarre pictures. So we'll be getting to those and talking a little bit about that inspiration. Um, do you have like any particular approach when you sit down to write an adventure? Is there something you kind of do? Like, do you light a candle, get in the bubble bath, and just sort of let the ideas wash over you, and then write with like a quill and parchment? Or do you sit down on the computer? Do you go? What do you usually do when your ideas come to you?
Yeah, it's interesting. I am not one of those people that can usually just sit down and bang out an adventure. Right? I can't just sit down and bang out an adventure from start to finish. I have to stew.
Right.
My brain has to stew. Because what I've found is when I let the brain just kind of stew and work, I just come up with even better ideas, right?
Right.
So what I'll do is I'll do kind of an outline of the adventure. Okay, so here's the germ of the adventure, and then here is, and then I'll kind of do the main points of the adventure, like almost like bullet points.
Mm.
Because I like to think of an adventure as kind of um, plot points, that the players can go, and how they get there or how they interact with them is totally up to them, right? But there are kind of plot points that they're probably going to run into with
Right.
the adventure. So the impetus for this adventure was I want something weird,
Hmm.
and how about an extra dimensional entity that is bored with being immortal, okay, and runs games, like runs almost like they're the game master, right?
Right.
Like it's a creature that's a game master. And how would what would that look like?
So can I ask? The first thing that pops into my head is Abraham Lincoln, Genghis Khan, Captain Kirk, and like the a Klingon or a Gorn or something like being kidnapped. Is it something sort of or I also think
Yeah,
about the Beyonder and the Secret Wars from Marvel Comics.
right.
Is that the vibe you're kind of thinking of, or am I going off on a tangent here?
You're going off on a tangent
Yep, that's me.
because it's more it's more the players versus the game than like having allies, like having Abraham Lincoln as your like the good and the evil
Right.
side. It's just a game.
Okay.
To the thing, it's just a game. It doesn't good and evil doesn't matter. None of that extraneous human stuff
Right.
matters to this entity, right?
Okay.
It just wants to be entertained.
All right. Sounds good. So it
Yeah.
sounds like you'll sit down and you kind of get this seed of an idea. And then from what you're describing, if I'm correct here, it sounds to me like you're kind of writing an outline with some key beats or important moments that are going to occur throughout the length of the game. So kind of like with that idea in mind, is there anything you're trying to do with the game in particular? Is it just, okay, I want them to have a fun time, or I want to make a point about something, or I want to make sure that they use a lot of like, is there something in particular that you want to do with this game, or is it just sort of like, let's see where the players take me?
Right. There is structure, but I like to see where the players take me and kind of run off of that, right? Because I always like to have adventures and games that are really just kind of very loosely defined, and the players define it. So they'll run into a character, right? And for an example, just say an average NPC, right? They run into this kind of quirky average NPC, and they're either going to just blow him off, or they'll be like, this guy's a little interesting, and they might take an interest in him, right? And then if they blow him off, he's not much in the story anymore. He's
Right.
just kind of blown off. If they like him, you can add him to maybe the things you weren't going to add him to, right? He'll show up at certain times, or give them a clue, or inadvertently, usually you give them a clue if it's an NPC or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
So I like that kind of okay, I'll have these loose undefined things that happen that are still are plot points, but I'm not going to say this and this and this and this and this happens.
Right.
Right.
You
Right.
just kind of have these rough things in mind. And then
Right.
when the players encounter them, or when you know, add the NPCs into the mix, they're going to kind of remix the recipe into something, and maybe you'll follow along with
Exactly.
that.
And for me, I have to have something. Like I have to have something to start. I know some people can just run cold and not have anything, but if I've at least thought about something,
Yeah.
when the players encounter it, it's much better. You know, I'm
Right.
not scrambling to catch up. I've thought about it a little bit. I haven't defined everything, right? But I've thought about it a little bit. So when they encounter it, it's not like I'm scrambling to catch up with them. I'm there with them, and we're like toe to toe, head to head, having fun, playing off each other.
That actually makes
Um,
a lot of sense. Like I kind of know what you mean. I am often the same way. Like there's this, if I'm kind of running alongside them, the players, then or ahead of them, hopefully, then I feel like I'm delivering a better game. And there's so many times when, like, this is a classic situation for me is, let's say I hadn't planned that NPC, and I just suddenly had to make a NPC out of thin air. I will, of course, do that on the fly, but then at 1 or 2 in the morning when I'm laying in bed, I think, oh my gosh, I should have made the NPC this, and the other thing, and it would have been so much better and more meaningful. And I sort of see what you mean about the idea of getting the idea and then stewing on it, or sitting on it, or maybe letting it marinate, because I feel like the iterations that I come up with in my head um, often make the game, for me anyway, like a little bit more seasoned and rich and real, and I hopefully that translates to the players as well.
oh, I agree. I agree.
Um, is there
I think a
something?
little
Oh,
that little bit of preparation does help. Like
mm,
no preparation, it takes a really not necessarily good,
mm-hmm.
because there are a lot of good game masters, but someone who can really improv, right, is like spot on.
Yeah,
And I'm I'm pretty good at that, but I like to have a starting place.
right.
Yeah.
And is there anything you think in particular makes for a really good experience in the game? Like when you're running your adventure, is there something you want to deliver for the players in particular, or something in general that you maybe strive for?
Um, I want everyone to have a great time. Um, I endeavor to I know it's been talked about before, but having the special moments for the players,
Yeah.
right? And to tell you the truth, that's a lot of where I invent stuff, where the improv happens, because I see a player interested in something, or they mention something with their character, and I pick up on I'm soaking up all that stuff that they're
Mm,
talking about with their character. And I love to like add that back into the game and make them feel an emotion,
yeah.
or make them feel badass and cool. You
Right.
know what I'm saying?
Right. So they have some sort of memory, like they're building a memory in much the way you would build a memory if you actually went out there in real life, but you're building a memory together at the table of this epic adventure that you're
Right, right,
running
right.
together.
Because I think, like the emotional connection to the game. And I think a huge problem with a lot of games is pacing. like pacing is hard, particularly for new game masters who are learning the system, which they're not as hard with EZD6 because the system's so freaking fast. You know what I'm
Yes.
saying? Pacing is not hard with EZD6. With other systems, it can be difficult because you got to get through those rules. You got to get through those rules breaks to get the story moving. And if things aren't happening in the game, make them happen. Like something shows up, an event happens. Do something. Don't let your players flounder around.
Right.
You know, I know sometimes players end up with too many choices, and it's
Yeah.
like, you know, it's like going to the grocery store and there's like 50 different dressings and you can't decide which one to get.
Right.
It's like humans don't do well with 50 choices, right?
Yes. Yes. It's the Trader Joe theory. I used to actually hate Trader Joe's, and I
Yeah.
was like, "Oh my God, why are there's two types of pickle?" I wanted this other subset of version of pickle. And then actually over the years, I've sort of learned that for me, I just like a couple choices. And I think those choices
Right.
need to be kind of clear too. And that
Yeah.
is actually
Yeah.
something I noticed about EZD6 is it is so simple, it's very clear. So it frees your mind, the GM's mind and the player's mind to sort of become the storyteller or to become part of the story as a
And I
player.
think you can tell a better story and be more cognizant of what what to give your players, because you're not using your brain runtime for rules, right?
Right.
You've got RAM in your brain. If you're constantly thinking of rules, you're not thinking of ways to make the story better.
Yeah.
You're thinking about the dang rules, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
If the rules are just flow so easy like EZD6, you don't even have to think about the rules. They just
Mm.
happen,
Mm.
you know?
It's
So I love that. I love that.
Yeah, it's absolutely true. So for those of you that haven't checked it out, and again, I'm not trying to make a sales pitch here, but you know, the truth is I have people on the program that I'm whose stuff, whose work, whose ideas I'm really excited about. I do recommend you check it out. Well, let me ask you this, Scotty. How can we begin here? We have like a few options. We can just sort of talk out, like it sounds like you look for like bullet points. We could
Hmm.
talk those out. I could actually, I do have access to Google. We both have access to Google Drive, and I can like throw Google Drive up on the screen, and we can start looking at pictures, or I can start writing stuff down. What do you think would be best for you and your approach? Or we can just talk. Whatever you feel is really
Yeah,
best.
yeah, yeah. I think it might be kind of cool if you could throw. I could recommend some pictures that we put
Yes.
down.
All right. So,
Um,
ladies and gentlemen, warning. These these are weird pictures. I want to know a little bit about these pictures.
yeah.
So maybe you could tell us a little bit. So before we came on the program, Scotty sent me some very interesting pictures, uh, which I will be forwarding along to the proper authorities. Um, Can you tell us anything about these photos or I mean they're not photos. I hope they're not photos. These
Mm-mm.
illustrations and why you chose them, or I'm not sure if you created them or looked to someone for inspiration or.
So what I did is I used a AR AI art generator is what I did. That's how I got these pictures. Um, because if you're looking online, there's tons of art for like castles or dragons or whatever,
Yeah,
but find like a cavern with a red eye at the top.
right.
Good luck on that.
A little bit of a niche market there.
Yeah, it is. So these AI art generators, although they can be totally finicky and hard to work, they can also you can also just sometimes get that perfect picture or something that's
Yeah,
close enough.
yeah.
Um,
Is there one
so
is there one in
yeah,
particular you want to kind of start with and tell us a little bit about and
yeah. There's
maybe.
a guy in a
Uh-huh.
robe in like it looks like a regular dungeon,
Black and
not with
white?
the red light, but he's like in a robe. Yeah, that's it. That's the one.
Got it. So then what was it? What were you trying to go for here and how does it sort of start us off on the adventure?
Yeah. So I wanted to have you just kind of feel like you were thrown into this without really any kind of choice, right? Um, this was a one shot, so it's not like we're gonna go to the town and like spend 20 minutes in the town. It's just gonna throw you right in, right? Throw you in the deep end.
Mm, mm,
So all the players wake up and they see this character in a dark robe, and he starts talking to him, and he explains that he's the Grim, which is a character I made for Quest Givers, and I have this really cool adventure over at Quest Givers where you meet the Grim, and you can go back and change things. You can like change something in your past that you didn't like, which is I've run it. Has been an amazing adventure to do. I think all players have some regret that they did in their adventure career that they would change if they could. And so he's kind of this weird figure in this extra dimensional space. And there's all these doors lining this hallway. And so basically, he just tells you, choose one of the doors, right? And of course, as the GM, you know that the door they choose is going to be the adventure.
Wait
right?
a minute. So you're saying no matter what, let me see if I get this straight, Scotty. No matter what door the players choose,
mm-hmm.
it's going to be the adventure.
Right.
So if they, for chance, like you planned door C to be the
right.
exit.
Yeah. Yeah. There's no
The
door C.
safety.
It's door one. There's one door.
Got it.
A1.
Check.
A1
Check.
adventure. That's it. So and when the players go in, they're all kind of sucked. Like if you have that lead player, right, that's brave enough to go in first, right? They're gonna go in first. So they open the door, they go in. The rest of the party might have a little bit of trepidation. Well, it all just sucks them in, and they're sucked in there, right? And they're in, and then the door disappears. There's no door.
And let me ask you this, like, do you ever get a little bit nervous? Because one thing I've kind of noticed sometimes about games that I play in, and maybe you can tell, I don't know if you feel this way, because you are obviously a very seasoned game master, but um, I've noticed sometimes I feel a little bit like I delay the action or I delay the game in the beginning because I'm worried I don't have enough material or I'm worried about where it's going, and I slow things down in the beginning in order to just sort of start things, or to keep things here so that
Playing
I
for
can.
time.
Yeah, I'm
Playing for
playing
time.
for essentially I'm
Yeah.
playing for time. Is that? I mean, do you have you gotten over that? Because the idea of just throwing the characters straight into the adventure, I think, is a great one. But I think it might be a little bit nerve-wracking for some GMs who are like, "Oh my gosh, I only have the second scene planned out," or "I'm not sure what they're
Right.
going to do," or "I don't know if I have any material."
Right.
You're okay with just? Is it something you've gotten over, or is it something you plan for, or?
Well, I think that's why those bullet points help, because maybe you won't use all of them, right? Maybe the game's not really going in that direction, or it's going too long, and you want to skim some stuff. So if you have these bullet points, you have enough material that you can draw on, but almost nothing you can't skip, right? You've got like there's always a few important tidbits in the adventure, right, that
Yeah,
have to happen.
yeah,
But besides that, it's all just filler and fun, right? So um, those little kind of ideas, just kind of jotted down, really go a long way to solve that problem.
excellent. All
Yeah.
right then. So then, once they're thrust into the adventure, they walk through that door, and the Grim sends them on the or the GM sends them on their
Yeah.
adventure. What what are we thinking? How are they landing in this weird world, and I guess what's the problem going to be, or what's the difficulty going to be, or?
Right. I I love the three pillars. I love exploration, combat, and role play in about the same order or about the same amount. But no adventure is going to have exactly the same amount of each, right? But you want to have some of each, I think, because exploration is a really interesting aspect to role playing in other worlds that you're not familiar with. Um, because every little discovery is interesting,
Mm,
right?
mm,
Um, and so that's the first thing the players are going to go to when they get thrust into this cavern. It's like, okay, let's figure out where we are and what's going on, right? That's the first thing going through their mind. So they look up, and the cavern is like hundreds of feet tall. It's like a chute almost coming down, or a large well, about 30 feet, 40 feet wide. And there's a red glowing light that resembles an eye at the top of this, and then there is a spiral pathway that goes all the way around up through the well, right? So you can go up. But after that, the first thing the players notice is all these bodies laying on the ground, um, in twisted, like they're twisted, like they've been mutilated, right? And generally, the players figure out that they fell from a great height, right?
I
So
think
that is a cool discovery, but it's also like, oh shit,
right,
you
because
know, are we gonna fall off of this thing? And then that's when I like to mix it up with something happening, like in a horror movie, something jumps out, or something like that, right? So in this story, what I decided was a skeleton. You hear a scraping noise, and a shield, a tower shield, is being dragged across the stone floor, and there's a skeleton behind it. It's weird. It's like kind of not focusing on me. I don't
I
know
think
why.
you're
Okay.
okay.
Okay. There we go.
I
Okay.
think you're right.
So so the skeleton pokes his head out and says, "Welcome to the game. You know, um, you must find all the clues to escape." And it gives them kind of the basics of the game, and then it attacks.
Oh,
So yeah, just to keep it fun, to have a little combat there, because so you've got the exploration, you've got a little bit of role play, and now the combat. So the thing attacks you, pretty easy to defeat, but in EZD6, basically what I had was, since it's got that tower shield, you have to roll a crit to hit it, a confirmed crit, which means you have to roll a 6 and then roll a 1 die and get a 6 again
mm,
to hit it.
mm.
Not just hit it, but you have to crit it to hit it. So because it keeps hiding behind the
Right. So
shield.
it's not going to go down until you actually crit it.
Right,
Otherwise, it's
right.
going to keep
But it
coming
only
back
has
up.
one strike. If you hit it, it explodes in a
Right.
shower of bone and everything. Yeah. So it's like, okay, now we've got the rules, right? Or at least the basic rules. Um, and you're kind of stuck. Like, there's no food, there's no water. Like, you can't just stay here. You know what I'm saying?
So at this point, you've essentially you've thrown them into the action,
Mm-hmm.
and you've given them very simple kind of parameters here for the adventure. And so they
Right.
have very simple motivation. And I guess what I like is I'm assuming that this cavern at the base of the spiral staircase is just sealed so they can't get out any other way.
It is,
And
yes.
so their only choice is to go up the spiral staircase. And obviously, I'm assuming, unless there's a twist here, I'm assuming that the corpses and the carcasses at the base of the spiral staircase are adventurers that didn't fare so well at whatever's at the top or on the way up. Um,
Right.
can I ask now at this point? Spoiler alert for anyone that may be playing with Scotty in the future. Because of the fact that we're game masters here, can we now talk a little bit about what's going on behind the scenes and how this is kind of, if this is okay with you,
Mm-hmm.
just so
Mm-hmm.
we can kind of understand a little bit as we go through the adventure and talk about it, the motivations and why you're doing some of the things you're doing. Can you tell us what's going on now at this point, or?
Right. The player, this is, at this point, the players have enough information to proceed, but they still don't know what's going on, right? They have to discover that through the adventure, right? Exactly what is going on here. They know, they have an idea they're in a game of some type. They have to ascend to escape, and find clues, but besides that, they don't know why they have to do this. What's happening, where they are.
Mm, mm,
So I like that. Um, I like that kind of mystery. The
mm.
mystery to keep them in the dark, because that gets you to want to like discover, right? It's like watching a show. You see something happen, and you want to find out why that happened. So
Right.
that gets you to continue, right?
I think it's like the perfect way to kind of keep them going forward. Um,
Mm-hmm.
as a game master, what's kind of going on in the back of your head at this point then? Are you kind of like, do you know what's happened, or are you waiting to take cues from the players? I mean, it could be both ways. Like, um, because what I kind of want to capture right now is the idea of like, do you know what's going on? Or is your method to sort of make this up as you go along? Or what is it that's happening at the top that's causing people to be
Right.
thrown to the bottom or fall to the bottom or
This is a less kind of open-ended adventure. A player could come up with a great plan at the end and maybe bypass
mm-hmm.
what they're supposed to do, but probably not, right? Probably not. Because this entity has, run this many times. You're just another sucker that got that got shoved
Right.
here.
Yeah, got
But can you escape? So it's kind of like either you do or you don't. You know what I'm saying? You die here or you die trying.
mm-hmm.
Um, there's not a lot of like, oh, we went around and like, we solved it this way or whatever. There's really no way. But that being said, I also don't like to just have from point A to point B, right? Which basically the spiral up is point A to point B.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So what also the players notice after the skeleton is there are caverns in the rock. So you can actually bypass the path going up and you can go through these other caverns. But the problem with that is there's all these other traps and tricks and encounters in that lattice of caverns. It's easier to go up the spiral, okay? But the problem is the dead adventurers at the bottom. And the reason those dead adventurers are at the bottom, because there's a creature in here called a gaunt, which if you put up the black bat looking thing,
Yep.
Attacks the players as they go up this spiral. Right?
Oh, that's nasty. Now
there's several of them.
Is it? It kind of looks like bat/dragon.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Oh, that is nasty.
So.
Oh my God! So as you're going up this,
Yeah.
Okay. All right, I got it.
So basically, you go up about 20 feet, and there'll be a cavern that you can go into where you get the clue. Okay, but you have to get up there, and these things fly around, and they try to knock you off and kill you, right? So you're walking up this narrow path, against the wall, coming up this path, it's maybe 5 feet wide at the most. That's pushing it. More like 2.5 feet.
Right.
So you're walking up this narrow path, and I would have things like, oh, do you want to run to the next thing? Then don't roll a 1 or you fall off. You know what I'm saying? Or you slide up. You know what I'm saying? Like,
right.
That's a mechanic I use in EZD6 a lot, which is, it's not menacing in D&D because you're rolling a 20, but when you're rolling a D6, a 1 comes up a lot more than you
a lot
want it
more
to.
often than that's true. Yeah, I never quite thought about it that way, but yeah, you're right. I mean, you can roll a 1 so much statistically so much easier.
So
on
I
a
torture
D6.
players. I say, okay, you can do this, but don't roll a 1. Everything, and the thing that's nasty about it is in EZD6, you can't use your luck on a 1. If you roll a 1, it's a failure.
Right.
There's only one thing you can use on it, and that's a hero die, and you have 1 for the whole game.
Right.
So once you use that, and you could even roll another 1.
Yeah.
If you get really unlucky.
It's out. Right. So you have to be choosy about.
Yeah, so you have to be choosy about when you're going to use it. So basically, that's the only way to recover from a 1. You can't use karma on it. So it's really a scary thing when I ask the players to roll. They're like, oh God, no, they're like, ah. So it's a genius mechanic,
right?
And a scary mechanic. It's genius for me, but it's scary for them at the same time.
No, and it's really helpful too, because I mean it adds that danger and that that fear and
yes.
it for me, yeah, I agree. It is a fun mechanic.
Because you could be like, oh, do you want to run up the ramp to the next level and avoid the bat thingy, or do you want to just crawl up and not have to roll any dice? Go up about halfway and not have to roll any dice, right? But then the bat thing might attack you.
Right.
Right.
How far Like when they're looking up, do they see the end point, or is it just keep spiraling up? Or
It looks like there's an endpoint,
okay,
like a
all
couple
right,
100 feet up.
okay, cool.
Yeah.
So then, with this kind of in mind, what happens next? What are we going to be talking about next for?
Yeah. The next thing is puzzle. This game has a puzzle to it.
Hmm?
Okay. And some players are like, oh, my daughter, she loves puzzles. My wife and my daughter are freaking geniuses at puzzles. The rest of the party sitting there drooling on themselves, and they're like they're like this whole crazy puzzle out, right? But puzzles can be so problematic in games because you can
Yeah,
have a whole group of people that aren't really good at puzzles. And I get it. But I like to do a thing where it's a process of elimination, right? You're going to get the answer eventually, right? And there's going to be penalties when you don't get the answer right.
right.
But you're not. It's not like you're never going to get the answer, right? Don't make puzzles like that because your
Yeah,
players will not want to play that game.
I think for me, I have to be honest, like for me, making puzzles, and my players will attest to this, it's my blind spot.
Mhm.
I think that it's like the number one thing that I fail to include in most of my adventures. Like I'm not a puzzle guy. Um, for you, uh, so you mentioned that it's like you'll give them a puzzle that's more of a process of elimination than something that's
Exactly. Yeah.
genuinely like a,
Yeah.
a
A
brain
process that you
twister.
can get to. A process you can get to by just guessing if you want.
Right.
you know.
Like you might have like
Yeah.
three stones or something, and
Yeah.
so there are only three times three, what would that be, like nine different combinations for the stones, so
Right.
you know that at a certain
But you're
point
gonna
you're
have a
gonna.
penalty each time. Either something's gonna attack you, magic, or some bad thing will happen every time you fail.
So
So there's
then
incentive to do it right.
what is the puzzle then that you're planning on springing on the players, and where would that be? Top of the spiral, somewhere in the caverns, or is this another case of no matter what door you pick, you're gonna get that puzzle?
Well, there are 5 caverns leading up to the top. Okay, about every 20 feet or so, there's another small cavern, and that cavern has a thing where you can get the puzzle. You can get a piece of the puzzle. Okay.
Okay.
Right, right, right,
Now I
right.
get it.
So the first one they come to is I'll the way I have it, like the first one I have set, but the other ones I kind of change up sometimes.
Hmm?
The first one is you come in the cavern, and the first thing you see are these zombies that kind of wake up. If you could put the zombie up that has all the
You
the
bet.
weird red fleshy or weird red veins on it.
Yes.
um they see these zombies kind of come to life and amble towards them, but then they quickly realize that they're tethered to the wall with these red tendrils that are actually in the zombies, and the zombies can't get to them. But across the room is a stone that has a handprint in it, and there should be a picture with a red handprint. Um, Basically, you have to get through there and put your hand in the handprint,
Mm.
and usually that's a pretty big. You're like, oh, do you want to put your hand? They're like, I don't know. Do you want to put your hand in it? That kind of thing. Um, and I always scare them with they feel a tingle or something, or
Right.
like, to freak them out. And then when you do that, it activates this little door that appears on the stone that kind of slides open, and there's like a bone in there, and the bone has like writing on it, right? So it'd be like maybe like a finger bone that has like, or a hand bone that has like a clue on it. Okay. So for example, the first clue would be the shortest is crimson.
I'm gonna have to ask you about the way you come up with your. But we'll talk about it in a moment. Okay, I'll take your
Yeah,
word
yeah,
for it right now. The
yeah,
shortest
yeah.
crimson. Okay.
And so that's like, what? What the heck
Yeah,
does
because
that mean?
I'm doing the same thing right now. I've already done that.
Like, what the heck does that mean?
Yeah.
So, and each cavern has that lattice of caves running through it. So they could be, well, hell no, I don't want to go out back on that. I don't want to go back out on that ramp again and have those bat things come at us, right?
Right.
Let's just go through this cavern. But like I say, there's encounters in the cavern. Some are kind of just interesting role-playing encounters. Like there's a guy with a skeleton that asks you to take his skull. His soul is trapped here, and he asks you to take a skull back
So
with you.
each cavern then. So let me just make sure I understand here correctly. So
Mm-hmm.
what's interesting about what you're setting up is you're kind of in a way funneling your players without really funneling them.
Right,
They do
right,
really actually have the choice. If they want to go up
yeah,
to the top, they can go ahead and give that a try. But
right.
I would, I can definitely see the players or myself as a player, and maybe as like a player that's very thorough and played a lot of text adventures. That's
You are
my.
very thorough. Yes,
I know, I
I
know.
will attest to that.
Yes, it's true, ladies and gentlemen. I'm thorough. We did a lot of, we did 40, we did
You like
45
to check
minutes
stuff
of
out.
audio checks before this. I had DM Scotty singing the complete all of the songs from The Sound of Music, and I was checking every level and his pitch and all of that. It's true. Um, so what I would be super thorough. Yeah, that's right. And he was running through
Spinning around.
a CG field with with little Swiss children. Um, anyway, but we digress. I
Yes.
digress.
Yes.
So what's clever to me is they can go up that spiral, but me being the thorough guy that I am, would peek into at least one of the caverns or one of the caves in order to sort of figure out, well, should we actually, is this a big distraction? Should I be going in there? And I feel like if I saw that there were 5 of them, and the first one I went into, there's zombies with a handprint and an activated door, and then there's a clue that comes out on a finger bone, I would probably be thinking to myself, I want to complete this and go look in the other caverns. Is that kind of your intention? Will they be gathering clues through for the rest of the
The
adventure
intention
or
is for them to go to the 5 main caverns that go up.
okay.
If they don't, they won't have all the clues.
Right.
Yeah, I mean they could just guess.
Yes.
Yeah, but that's not a good idea.
Okay. So then what would you like to do next then? Do you want to explore more of the caverns? Do we want to go up and work on the spiral, or is there something else in your brain right now that you'd like to
Right, right.
discuss?
So, I was talking about those kind of points in the adventure where it's up to the players, right? How things go. So this kind of skeleton encounter is this way, right? Like it's like, please, take, my spirit is in my skull, take my skull with you. I was horrible in life and but I don't deserve this. I don't deserve to be. Oh, also the zombies, they mumble something to the players as they're kind of reaching out to grab them. The players also realize that if you go straight towards the stone with the imprint, the zombies can't reach you. Like
Right.
they're
That was when you
clawing at
mentioned
you.
the big like
Yeah.
the harnesses keeping them
Yeah, yeah,
back and
yeah.
all that.
Like the tendrils in their back or whatever, they're tethered, they can't reach you. But they say, um, something about being trapped here and you will be too. You'll never leave. And so
Right.
that's weird. That's weird for them to say. So it really turns out that they're like people who didn't make it out, right?
Oh, okay, I get
Right.
it. So
Right.
we're not just looking at the bodies and people necessarily being dead, but then
Right.
there are people that are undead and they are the victims that the
Right.
adventurers that were unable to make
So probably
it
got
out.
to the top and then just didn't make it out. Like guessed wrong or whatever. Didn't
Okay.
didn't get the puzzle, right?
All right. So then
And
oh, go ahead.
so now they're trapped here,
So then
forever.
should we go through the different caverns now or should we move on to the next part, or are we going to?
Yeah.
What would
I
you
don't
like
think
to
we'll
do?
go through all the caverns,
Hmm.
but I will tell you all the clues just to
Hmm.
give you context.
Oh yeah, please
So
do.
so the first one that you got the first one, the shortest is crimson.
Yeah.
Then the next clue is you must place yellow.
Okay.
Um the next one is the middle of the 5 is blue.
Oh.
The next one is orange rings true. And the last one is the last points to green.
The last points to green.
Mm-hmm.
I'm starting to see a control panel covered in gems, and all these things need to.
Yeah,
But
yeah, yeah. That
really,
that starts that starts us. That's not exactly it, but
kind
it's
of.
a good guess.
The
Yeah.
last points to orange. The last points to
The last points to green.
green. Okay.
So we got the shortest is crimson.
Yep.
You must place yellow.
Yep.
The middle of the 5 is blue. Orange rings true. The last points to green.
Okay. Perfect. All right.
And
Sorry, folks.
so,
My
yeah.
typing is very bad. I got a new keyboard. It's really nice and very Bluetoothy, but it's also very small, and I'm all thumbs. And streaming, interviewing, panicking, typing,
I got a giant
keeping
type.
my
I got a
cat
giant
from
keyboard.
scraping at like my sweater. It's too much for me to handle. Something's got to give, and it's the typing, folks. It's the typing. Ordinarily, I'm a good typist. Very, very good.
Yeah, Scattered Terrain says the bodies of those who failed to solve the puzzle adds a nice touch of tension, and that's exactly why they're there.
Yeah,
Because it's like,
I think that's the
yeah,
best thing about it is that
yeah,
what's interesting is I don't know how the adventure is going to end, but it feels like very full circle in a weird sort of
right,
way. Like you can
right,
either move on or you
exactly,
can stay here and just die.
right,
And moving
right,
on, you may end up actually dying if you don't
right, right,
succeed.
right. Like, like I like to build that, especially in creepy adventures like this, and you don't know what's going on. Adventures like this, I like to build that tension and that horror.
A- And
Yeah.
it's good to start it off right from the beginning.
Yes, yeah, and that's exactly. You see all these bodies. It's like, oh crap, what happened here? You see all
Right.
these desiccated bodies. It's like, what happened here? You know? Yeah.
So then if we have the 5 clues and we can sort of assume that hopefully the players have gone through and gathered some of these clues, does that mean they're going back up the spiral staircase, or is there going to be another way through one of the caverns?
They can always go through the side
Always.
caverns,
Okay.
but what they quickly learn is when they do, stuff happens.
Hmm?
There's traps. There's things that happen, bad things that can happen. There's also a couple like role playing encounters there. And then one of the most interesting role playing encounters is kind of this. When you come to the last um when you come to the last print where you get the last
Yeah.
clue,
Yeah.
it's a pretty big cavern, and there's a like a hot spring pool with an attractive woman sitting in it. And uh she is a hag, okay? Um and she she will give you information, but she wants blood. Like you have to sacrifice like a strike of your blood
Oh.
to her, which in EZD6 is a big deal.
Yeah,
Like when you give
right.
up a strike, most characters have 3 strikes. So if you give up a strike, that's a big deal, right?
Yeah.
So you have to give up a strike, and she'll suck your blood. And then she'll give you some hints and clues to like what's going on. You can ask her questions like what's going on and this kind of thing.
And
And so that's a good way to, for the players to like, well, what the heck is happening here? They get them answers.
this is one of the things that I was talking about when I mentioned earlier how portable the game is and how easy it is to take with you. So what Scotty is talking about is the 3 strikes rule, and I probably won't explain it as well as Scotty can explain it. But essentially, it is what it sounds like. It's 3 strikes and you're out. 3 strikes and that's it. And rather than carrying around and having to keep track of a little table with all of your hit points on it and wondering how many hit points and what are we deducting and does it soak and blah, 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 blah. It's fairly simple in that if you do get hit, if you do get a strike, you get a strike and you get up to 3 of them. And it really makes, again, for real portability. This is something that I greatly appreciate. And I mean, I assume if you're playing a really hard edge game, then you're going to have players, you know, that go out very quickly, but you can easily customize it to suit the needs of your table.
But you won't but you know, people don't account for how resilient carriers are because you have an armor save.
Yes.
Right? And you have karma. And you can boost that armor save with karma. So if you roll 1 off your armor save, you can spend a karma and make your armor save, and you don't take a strike. So a warrior, I've seen spectacular scenes where a warrior has just held off a crazy amount of enemies because they just keep making that armor save.
Right.
And a D&D warrior can't do that.
Yeah.
Through attrition, they're going to die. But if you get lucky enough as a warrior in this game, you can just keep going. I mean, I've seen amazing. I've also had it go reverse where bad luck and someone just goes down because, you know, and so that's what keeps this game exciting. You know, it's not like, oh, I have my 200 hit points. I don't have to worry until I get to 50 or whatever. Right. It's like, you know, they're whittling me down, but, you know, I heal me up. You know, I'm good. You know, this game, you could die quickly. You could die before you're healed, right? You know, in D&D, you got 200 points, you get down to 50, the next person heals you, you're back up to 200 or whatever, you're good, right? This game, you could die on your own turn very easily with bad luck, with really bad luck. But one thing that mitigates that is the karma. And so that's a great decision in the game because do I use my karma on attack rolls?
Do you want to explain, Scotty,
use it on armor?
Those that may not have played the game or be familiar with it, what do you mean when you're talking about karma and why is it so helpful?
Yeah, karma are the luck points of the game, and I love it because it gives the players all the forward-facing rules of the game. The game runs almost invisibly until it's for player choices, which is what I like, right? All the rules that are player facing are rolling crits, hero dice, and deciding on power level of your spells, and karma, right? And the great thing about karma that I like is when you fail a roll, you get a karma for it. Because it sucks in a role-playing game when you just can't make a roll. You just keep failing your rolls.
Right.
In this game, you're not going to be in that situation.
Yeah.
Because you're going to have enough karma eventually to spend and correct your rolls.
You can choose to take it.
Right.
If you're really like not feeling it that night, the rolls are not with you, you can actually choose to participate.
You can bank luck, essentially. Right. And, you know, and then comes that interesting decision. Well, do I spend my karma to hit, you know, and crit? Because you can spend it on crits. So you can get crazy crit chains.
Yeah.
Right? Where the monsters don't have that. Usually a monster will maybe get lucky and get 1 crit, but players, I've seen crit chains where it's like 3, 4, 5, 6 crits, you know, and you kill something with one hit, you know, and the table is just screaming at that point.
It is true. We've done that a few times, and those are like, it's funny because sometimes in the small games that I play, in particular, I'm playing a small EZD6 game with just a couple of players. Steve Canaris is actually one of them. You should check out some of his games, and he's actually been doing
I do spy on him from time to time.
I know.
On his games, yeah.
I know. You spy on everybody. So, like, if we ever pop into the Discord and suddenly there's a floating animated figure with, like, 2 glue guns in there, like, yes. So if you want to feel like real paranoia, just go in and play a game of EZD6 in Scotty's Discord server.
Drops in on you, right?
Yeah, just like, and we're like, is he watching? Because we keep saying stuff, but he's not responding. What's going on? Is he like vacuuming his home now or something? Is this on the background? So yes, that's a good way to get Scotty's attention.
It is. It
I
is.
totally forgot what we were talking about now.
Oh yeah, we were talking. We were talking about the hot tub witch, the
Right.
hot tub
Yes,
hag.
there we go. All right, the hot tub witch machine. There we go.
Yeah,
I'm sorry, the hot
yeah,
tub time machine? No, the hot spring
yeah,
pool
yeah,
with an
yeah.
attractive hag in
And,
it.
and and those she's attractive at first, and then she turns into the hag
Right.
thing. Um, you can actually show a picture if you want. They're pretty creepy, but so but I love that kind of thing because she's giving you the choice, right? I love doing that in games, like giving the players the choice. There's a difference between dropping a rock on somebody's head
Right.
and saying, like we were talking about with the path. Okay, do you want to run up the path and make it to the next cave and not have to worry about the bat creatures, but don't roll a one? Or do you want to take your time going up the path, right? And not have to roll any dice, right? So those choices, I love those choices more than anything I would ever do to a player in the game, right? The hag saying, "Yeah, I'll help you, feed me," and they're like, well, "What's that mean?" And it's like, "Well, you got to give her a strike of your blood or whatever." And they're like, "Oh crap," But hey, I mean, we want to know what the heck is going on. Yes, I'll do
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
But you made that decision, not me.
Right.
You made the decision. If you die a little later on because you were one strike too low,
Yeah.
you made that decision. I didn't take that strike away from you, right? You made the decision to lose the strike. So I love that kind of mechanic in the game. I love getting players to do stuff maybe against their own best interest
Right.
because they're interested in something. Players are always interested in something
I
like more information,
I
right?
think in general those sorts of situations are usually the best. And I've kind
Yes,
of said this
totally,
a few
totally.
times before. And so for those of you that are most people, I think a lot of people know that I'm a teacher. And one of the things that we sort of focus on with teaching is helping children or students, I should say, because they're older, helping students retain things. And one of the best ways to help retain things and to make memories is to give them choices that they have to clearly make in which they need to mull over a couple different things or maybe even three different things. If you give, and actually I can't believe it ties back into the Trader Joe's thing, but if you give someone too many choices, they
Hmm.
will face an overload, and it becomes what tends to imprint on their brain is the stress of trying to make that choice. But if they just have a couple things, like in this particular case, it is giving a sample of your blood to or a strike of your blood to the
Hmm.
hag versus just not doing it, it's something they have to mull over. And what's interesting to me too is if you have a party, I assume that you can either put them in as a game master, or I'm sorry, in this case I should be saying rabble rouser. As a rabble rouser, which is the GM in EZD6, you have a choice. You could, I mean, I assume like you can play with it and have say, oh well, the sample's got to come from each person, or oh, it's got to come from one person. In which case they're going to start arguing or discussing who the person is going to be, or versus all of them, and that sort of stress and trauma that it inflicts on the players, and it becomes a memorable experience in which they really have to.
Yes, totally. Players will remember that. They won't remember the 20 the crit they rolled in D&D, and killed a goblin. They're going to remember that. Oh God, remember when we were in that cavern and you had to give up your blood and I make it as gross as possible, right? Like the hag, is crawling on your back and sucking, you really sucking and green saliva's dripping down your, make it as horrible as possible.
Right.
And that's the stuff they're going to remember, right? Because mechanically, oh, okay, you lose a strike, whatever. You can do that, but if you give that visual of this horrible hag, like like getting this immense pleasure from sucking your blood and
Mm.
drooling all over you with green snot and slime.
That
I
would
mean,
stick with me.
they're going to go away and have to go to their psychiatrist next week.
And isn't that what we're all looking to do, ladies and gentlemen? Isn't that really what it's about? But it does tie into like an interesting fact. Again, it comes from my teaching, and the things that we read, the things that we see on television or in movies, or the things we experience role playing, um, if they have enough emotional, value for your brain, those stick with you and become valid memories every bit as valid as like an actual memory where you're like, you know, you remember the time you were walking through a field or something like that. And what's funny is after you've done something or after you've thought something, they both become equal in your brain because they are now equal memories. They at the time they were not, right? So for example, one is just like something you're thinking of. The other one is something like you ran your toes through the grass in the field. At those two
Hmm.
moments, they are different. One's ephemeral, an ephemeral thought, and the other one is just a chemical in your brain, and the other one is like something you're actually it's tactile. But 2 hours after it's happened, they are both equal in your brain and they have an equal chance of becoming valid depending on how they are emotionally affecting. So that's why it's so interesting to hear you talk about these things because you're trying to give your players an emotional experience,
Exactly,
you know,
exactly.
whether it
And
be fun or scary or
right,
whatever,
right. I
it's an
do both. You know,
experience.
I have funny moments or fun
As you
moments,
can as we
as
can
well as
tell.
horrible, hideous moments.
Right.
Um, and my friend Lisa, it says hashtag evil DM because I'm always messing with her, like doing these horrible things to her, torturing her. But it's like, how to avoid murder hobos, right?
Yeah.
Um, make the NPCs real people, right? If you're torturing them, like have them beg for their lives, and my family
Yeah.
and my wife, and players are like, shit, I'm like horrible.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like,
Yes.
what am I doing? I'm torturing this poor
It's the
guy,
classic example, right? Like I don't know if this
like
is a
like begging
cliche
for his
or
life, like, please.
yes,
Yeah.
exactly. Like you
Yeah.
give
It's not a like a stat anymore. It's a
right,
person. Yeah.
right. It's not a stat block.
Yeah.
It's actually
Yeah.
a memory now.
Exactly.
So then we have a hag, we have a skeleton in one, or a zombie. We have the 5 clues. Do we want to talk a little bit more about another cavern, or do we want to like keep going into another direction? What you're
Yeah.
the rabble rouser, so
Right. The hag is kind of the last big encounter before it's the last clue. The last clue before it happens, right? Before the really big show. Um
I get that reference.
but
A really
she
big show.
but hopefully they've given her some blood and she was able to fill them in on a little bit. Like they can ask her some questions and she'll answer, right? Because she's satisfied and and rubbing her belly. So she's happy. So ask her while she's happy. So she's happy and she's going to answer your questions. And so the players are like, okay, so here's what's going on. This is still crazy, but at least we know what's going on, right? So when they get to the top, there's kind of this altar thing, right? And it has the handprint on it, but it has a hand symbol, but it also has little notches for gems above each finger. Okay. And so this other this other character in a robe appears, a skeletal figure in a robe, um, and he gives the players the gems and says, "You must insert the gems in the slot, the correct slot, and if you fail, something will happen." And at that point, in the red light above you, it's really close to you now. These tentacles kind of dangle down, right? These horrible black tentacles kind of hang down right above your heads. Okay. So basically, you have to guess where the gems go, what finger the gems go with.
Okay.
Okay.
Now I
So,
get the clues, I
yeah,
think.
yeah, yeah. So all the gems are different colors. So one's red, one's yellow, one's blue, one's orange, and one's green. So there's 5 different colors of gems for 5 fingers.
So
Okay.
let me ask you about the clues then, because I'm just sort of thinking like if I were a player and I just
So what I would do as a player is try to, okay, which one makes sense to me that I know I'll get right, right? So get those first.
so I see your clues now. I'm going to pop them up on the screen so that we can kind of see, but I kind of get it now, and I apologize if the typing here. Let me enlarge it a little bit here to make it better for everybody. So I do see the 5 clues here. So at this point, they're going to be choosing between the shortest is crimson, and I'm guessing without putting this down, Rebel Rouser, the shortest is crimson. I'm going to guess that's the thumb. I don't
That's
know.
correct. That's correct.
The middle.
Sometimes people will guess the short your pinky.
I was going to say pinky,
Yeah.
right? But then
Yeah.
it doesn't say
Because they think
shortest.
finger. They don't
It just
think
says
of thumb as a finger,
shortest,
right? Yeah,
right?
yeah. But it is
Middle
thumb. Yeah.
of the 5 is blue.
Yep.
So now that leaves us with you must place yellow, orange rings true, and the last points to green. So I would have to say, if I'm arguing with the other players,
Uh-huh.
orange rings true, ring
Mm-hmm.
finger, I don't
That's
know.
correct. Yep,
And
that's
then
correct.
the last, you must place yellow, the last points to green. And this is going to be a guess here, and again, I would consult with all of my fellow players on this. The pointing part makes me think that the pointy finger is green,
Uh-huh.
and the last.
Oh, no. Sorry. The last points to green. Um the last is a pinky finger.
Oh, right.
The last one on your hand.
Now, I would.
And
It's
so
That's
the other one
fantastic.
is just like you can't guess it really without getting the others, right?
Right.
Because you must place yellow. This finger is the only one left, right?
Yes, right. Let me ask you this then. If I had been with the people that I play with regularly, we would have argued, and none of us would have come up with the same answer. We would have argued about it incessantly, probably gotten it wrong 2 or 3 times. How are you figuring the strikes or damage, or what are the consequences of the incorrect placements of
Right,
the gems
right,
in this
right,
case? Any
right.
ideas on that?
Oh yeah.
I love how people in the chat are and chat. I need to apologize to you, chat. I'm terrible at watching over you. We're so glad that chat is not a baby and I don't have a baby, because if chat were a baby and I had a baby, my baby would have been it would have been neglected. And so I'm so sorry that I can't always answer, but I do love the fact that you're all arguing with each other and telling each other what fingers and what gems match up. So thank you for that. Thank you for taking care of yourselves. You're just the sort of children. You're just sort of babies. I would want a baby that takes care of itself, chat. Thank you so much. Chatty baby. Chatty baby in the chat. So what would be happening then if what are the consequences of an incorrect placement of the
Well,
gems?
one of the rules of the game is one of the players has to place the gem. Okay, that's what the skeleton tells you. So your character would pick up the gem and then place it in the slot. Okay,
Right.
if they get it right, they continue. If they don't, the tentacles just
Right.
drop on you, suck you up. Okay, and there is a mechanic in EZD6 called sure death.
Oh, great. Oh, good. Let's
Okay.
let's talk about sure death. That's really good. Scotty,
But you do get a save.
Yeah.
Okay, there's a thing called a miraculous save, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's usually a 6, but a couple classes have a 5 or 6. That's it. If you roll that number, you don't die, but you survive with 1 strike, right? So say I use it for when okay, so you kill the boss and now the temple's blowing up and collapsing, right?
Right.
You're trying to get your butt out of here. So you roll the sure death save because to see if you get the whole thing collapses on and kills you. If you don't make that miraculous save, you're dead. You're gone. If you make it, you survive with 1 strike. So basically the thing sucks them up, pulls them up, and they got to make that miraculous save. If they don't, they just are sucked up into the creature and they become one of its minions tethered to the wall.
Oh, right. And then you become. Oh, shoot. Ladies and gentlemen. Full circle.
Right.
Full circle. This is
Right.
this
So
is
that horribleness you saw earlier.
Yes. George Lucas
Yeah.
would say it's poetry, it rhymes. Poetry, it rhymes. That's if George Lucas were here right now, he would be saying that. This is the Joseph Campbell of role playing that we're talking to right now, ladies and gentlemen.
So then the next person gets to put one in, and they're like, "Oh crap!"
So then it is. It's going to be one player
One
at a
person's going to suffer the
time.
consequences, right?
I really like it because this kind of goes back to what I was saying about players that kind of create their characters and then they don't necessarily get to use everything.
Right.
Um, you're thinking from the very beginning, right? That for the climax, you want to give what I assume is a climax, unless you have more.
No,
Um,
this is it. Yeah.
so so for the climax, you want to make sure that everybody kind of like participates in the action and everybody gets like
Mm-hmm.
a chance to do
Because
their thing.
they all argue for what. Okay, what finger should we do? Blah 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 blah. And if and if you have a group that just can't make a decision, just have the tentacles grab somebody,
Right.
like randomly roll.
Right.
And like your time, the skeleton could be like, your time is up, and then like it is grab somebody, and okay, now choose. It's like they're gonna be a lot quicker in the choosing.
Yes.
After that, right?
So you are actually like imposing because I think
There's a
it's really
time limit. Yeah, basically a time
a
limit,
time
right?
limit. Like
Yeah,
and
yeah,
I think that
yeah.
that's actually a really valuable thing to kind of do sometimes because it goes back to what we were saying about the analysis paralysis and all of that. Like if somebody just sort of like does it or you throw something at them and then they're sort of forced to begin, then really at a certain point, they don't they're sort of thrust into the adventure and they're whether they're ready or not or whether they like it or not, they're going to be like doing it. Is there a
Right.
standard like would you wait or how do you decide when to intervene and to sort of just force their hand on them? Is there
That's a great point. Um, it's really from feel, right? When the game feels like it's dragging. Um, I know a lot of people will roll timers, and that's a very valid thing. Like, oh, you have D4 rounds to decide this. Go, 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 go. Um, I I don't like that kind of imposing that kind of structure. There's nothing wrong with that kind of mechanic. I know the people love it. Um, I'm not one of those people because I always feel that the timer never hits the mark where I want to hit the mark, right? Where I want to turn up the pressure, right? With that thing, you could have it like the tentacles don't just grab somebody, they start to lower, like
yes.
slowly coming down. And it's like, what are you going to do? And if they don't decide to put a gem in there, it's going to grab somebody. Like
Right.
give them, like right. So when it feels like they've taken too long, not D4 rounds or whatever, then that's when the tentacles start to lower, and then you got to do it quick or it's going to happen. I don't know. It's just a feel for me.
Yeah.
Um,
I think you're right though. I think a good
yeah,
game
yeah,
master, a good rabble rouser will read the table and
exactly. That's
and
what I do. Read the
and
table,
the
right?
feelings there, like when things are like petering out.
If
Um,
everybody's getting bored, you got to move the game,
right.
right? And that's when you do it. That's when something happens, and then that immediately gets it going,
Or
right?
maybe if they're just confused, because it's entirely
Yeah,
possible for them to get to the top and,
it is. Yeah,
different
yeah,
people have
yeah,
different
yeah.
styles and different understandings, and there are sometimes
Right,
when you think you've made a puzzle or you've made a trap or you've made a
right.
situation
That
where
is a very valid point.
people
And
are gonna
I would always have the skeleton try to help them. If they have a question, the skeleton will answer and make it as clear as possible.
right.
Right.
What let me ask this then, because I was thinking of something else in my head when this happened. Like let's say the players are hesitating, or let's say the, the first player steps forward and they place the gem or they put it in the wrong spot, they fail their roll and they're gonna get killed.
Hmm.
Or, I mean, how would you handle something like that? Because as a game master, okay, so as a viewer, when I go to watch a film or watch a TV show, there are lots of films and television shows or books where the hero or one of the heroes dies, and it makes a super
Yes.
tragic,
Yeah.
like fantastic ending, right? Because you can watch fantastic from a storyteller's viewpoint, not from
Right.
that
Right.
character's viewpoint. Now, with a game, if someone's going to, the first person that lays down the gem is about to get killed, or you're worried about that, is there, or even if it's one of them along the way, are you ready to just kill them? or would you do something to help them out? Or I mean, I know that this again, it always depends on the situation, but just as like a hypothetical question, do you have a way of handling that, or do you have a kind of an internal rule about, yeah, we're 5 minutes from the end, this poor guy made it all the way, or
Yeah.
she's been working so hard, she's got all these things, cool things going on, everybody's rooting for her, it's not the right time to kill a character off. Do you have any kind of thoughts on that?
Um, I am not adverse to killing characters,
Hmm?
but honestly, it doesn't happen that often in my game because as horrible as I
Yes.
try to make myself seem in the game and evil,
And he
it's
does.
like
I
I
can
love
attest
the
to that, ladies and
players.
gentlemen.
I love the players. I do
Right.
not want them to die,
Yeah.
and if you give me a reason why you won't die, I'll probably go with it. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Yeah, if you could give me some valid reason, you know, and I always try to give, like I say, I try to give a clue, like, with the tentacles descending, like I didn't just grab somebody, like the tentacles are descending. Uh-oh, we better do something, right? That's a clue that we better do something. Or, if you're say in a weird example where you've been playing a long time in a cavern and you're an archer and you've been shooting and shooting and shooting and not recovering any arrow, you can't recover any arrows or something. I might say, oh, you're getting really low on your arrows. I'm not going to say, oh, you're out of arrows, sorry, you can't attack
Right.
now.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? I'm gonna give them a warning,
There's
right?
a there's a there's a
Yeah,
graduated progression toward that
right,
state just to sort of
right.
like serve as backups and all of that just to help the yeah.
Exactly. Like give them clues, or if they give you something legitimate, go with it.
Right. I've
I'm more than happy to do that.
Well, I've had situations where I feel a little bit like the player is sort of trying to get themselves killed, not because they're trying to wreck the game, but because they feel sort of like, you know what, this is the right moment for it. And it's not
Yeah,
one
oh
of those
yeah, oh
things where
yeah,
they're going like,
yeah,
they're not saying like, oh, well, my character would do this, but like I
right.
feel like they are so into the game
Hmm.
and they're so into the authenticity of it, if or the verisimilitude, if you want to say that, that they choose to sacrifice themselves. And maybe I see that this would be a great moment for someone to sacrifice themselves, a great dramatic moment. And maybe they see it and they will do that thing and they've sort of made that choice. But yeah,
I have a great example of that.
I'd love to hear it.
I was running a short campaign where they were on an alternate world, and there were these moonstones that were basically stone magic that was pulled from the moon. They were micrometeorites basically, and they were highly magical because it was like drawing the moon the magic from the moons, right? Well, the players discovered you could basically pop these like candy, and you would get bonuses in your casting. Like you could
Mm,
ignore a 1 that you
mm,
roll in your casting roll,
mm,
which is a big deal in EZD6. So um, they're popping these like candy, and like they're like learning stuff like, oh, this thing here mutated into this horrible abomination because it ate all of this moonstone, right? And the big bads in the thing were like these horrible idol
mm,
cursed things, demigods, because they ate all this moonstone, right?
mm.
So it's like, so they're learning everywhere, like, don't do this, right?
Right.
But they kept doing it. One guy kept doing it. He's like, it's just too tempting. So they finally got where they could escape this place, right? This gate opens, they're swirling around, this whole exciting thing. And the guy had the conjurer had this head. It was like a skull that was like kind of this mean-spirited familiar. And it was always giving him like bad advice, and like it wanted the moonstone. Like it was said, give me the moon, feed
Mm,
me the moonstone. He's like, was smart enough not to do that.
mm, mm,
He's like, no way, I'm not giving you this moonstone. So, but when he was swirled up, he'd eaten so much of the moonstone that the head attached to his body took him over. His head shriveled up like a little raisin,
oh, wow.
and it became him.
Yeah.
Like the head it grew flesh over it and became him, right? And the players are like, holy shit, holy crap. And like he was like, dude, That was the most baddest ass thing I've ever had happen in a
ending
game.
to any character I can think
Right,
of.
right, because he kept doing what everybody was telling him not to do,
Right,
like
right, right,
everybody
right,
would
right,
be
right.
like, and the other players are like, dude, quit eating that, quit eating that moonstone. What are you
I'll be
doing?
fine. Don't worry about it. You worry
So the
about your
payoff
own.
was great. The payoff at the end was just great, and
Yeah,
he was like, man, that was the best thing. So he died, but his character died, but his familiar, but it was just he loved it so much because right, exactly. He set it up. You know what I'm saying?
yeah,
He I don't think he realized he set it
yeah.
up, but
But
he set it up.
what's interesting is that sometimes those moments, like I think again, being a rabble rouser, being a game master, part of that, and being a player, is sort of working as a team with everybody else in order to help set. Sometimes you don't know you're setting them up.
Right,
And like I
right,
was thinking of a couple times in my history where like I've had these amazing endings where things have come full circle and my players
right.
think that I had them planned or they're like,
Oh
how did
yeah,
he
oh
pull
yeah.
that
Like
off?
I
And
did
I'm
not
like,
have that planned. It was just like we were on the
you
last
know,
game. I thought, oh my god, this would be so great because he
yes.
won't quit eating the moonstone.
I think keeping your eyes open and your ears open for like those little opportunities to bring
Exactly.
strings together, I think
Yeah.
that's often it's a very satisfying feeling for the players. And what I
Mm-hmm.
like about what you kind of designed here and what you're talking about, and I know I made a few jokes about it, but I think it's ultimately true. You've designed kind of a sealed circular adventure. And there are still like maybe a few unresolved things left, like there are in life, but you have
Mm-hmm.
given the players this adventure in which they've entered, they've had this experience, or they are put in this situation, and they can sort of see the writing on the wall, literally and figuratively, and then
Right.
they're
Right.
forced, their hand is forced, and for those that maybe cannot make it, or even if they do make it, it's going to be a full circle experience. Um, well, Scotty, thank you uh, very much for running through kind of like your methodology and the way you do things. I really find it to be a valuable experience for me, and I certainly hope I know that the viewers find it valuable as well. But before we go, I kind of wanted to ask you a very simple question. So I know that EZD6 is doing really well.
It is,
You
yes.
you got anything you're working on right now? Anything
Well,
coming
as a
down the
matter of fact,
turnpike?
I do. Um, really, the new book is so good. I know that sounds so conceited. I'm sorry. The new book is so good that I'm peeing my pants like waiting for it to come out. Like it's so slow
I'm glad we
because
only
like
see you from the chest up. But I
right.
love
I'm
your
floating.
enthusiasm. I
um
love it. Maybe you're
it's
not
so
streaming from the bathroom, are you? Is that why you got the blue screen up?
might be.
Okay.
The bathroom painted all green.
Right.
So so I'm so excited for this book because Brandish is a freaking genius designer, right? His own games are amazing. Runehammer, yes, he's the dude. I mean, I call him the mad genius because to me he is.
He is
He's just
really
like,
good.
yeah, his heart, soul,
Yeah.
mind, everything is in this. And we've always been huge fans of each other. I've always pushed ICRPG, and he saw my rules, and he's like, dude, he's like, I am going to help you make this. I'm going to help you make this a book. I'm
Yeah.
like, yes, please.
Yeah.
So his design work turned what could have been like a mediocre role set into like just a great little book, right? Just, I mean, the cover, just a joy to look at.
What
And
is, can you tell, can I ask this? I mean, I'm going to ask
Mhm.
it.
Yes,
It's
yes,
my
please do.
channel. I'm going to ask it, but you
Yeah,
don't
yeah,
have
of
to
course,
answer it.
of course.
What's the new book?
Okay, yes, yes, yes. The new book is called the EZD6 Book of Quests. Okay, and it is going to have 18 quests in it. I mean, I don't know if you can think of any book that has freaking 18 quests in it, right?
I can only
You know,
okay. Wait a minute. I can think of one, but wait a minute. That's
well, I
totally
guess there are
different.
some books that are like, oh, 101-page
Yes,
dungeon quests or
exactly.
whatever. But
It's
these
actually
aren't
a
those.
hundred like half
These aren't
page.
that.
Yeah,
These are like
you're talking about
a
full
lot of them are like
adventures.
full
Yeah.
blown adventures, right? But they're so good because like they're short enough that you can easily digest this stuff. You know, I was talking about the bullet points and everything. You can easily digest this quickly, like, and be ready to run, you know, or even just run from the book cold. You could even do that. One genius thing I think we did for the book was we have these D20 tables for each quest, and you can roll on those tables to get extra if the players do more exploring, or you know you want them to find other stuff or whatever, and it all connects
Kind
to
of
the quest. It's not,
expand and
yeah, it all expands the quest. It's not like a random table of crap,
right.
right? That you buy a table, you get a table in the Dungeon Master's Guide, and it's a random bunch of crap, right? All this stuff fits with the quest, right? And all of it adds something awesome to the quest. So it's like all these little tidbits that you can play on are fantastic. We've got like all these new monsters in there. I've got all these cool monsters in there. I've got new magic items. The art is over the top. We've got maps and Boba's art from like the original artist from the book. Has done fantastic, fantastic pictures. Yeah, the same guy. He is just, he's even gone above and beyond the
It's
EZD6.
really
I mean, he's
great.
knocked it out of the park. I
I
love his artwork.
I love his
Really
work too.
evocative.
Yeah, I
Um,
really do.
yeah, and so you know, a lot of the pictures in the book are like examples of stuff. Like there, you know, that was the Delver, and that was the, you know, the Ranger and all that. So, you know, those kind of things. But in the quest book, it's all like stuff from the quest,
Mm.
like little vignettes from the quest, right? So you know, if this is if this monster's attacking, you see this monster and all this crazy stuff going on, and
We have a couple
great stuff.
we have a couple questions and comments that are actually coming in the
Oh, I'm
stream.
sorry.
So
Yeah,
no, you don't have to apologize. It's my
sorry. I
neglected
got so,
baby
I
that
got so excited I wasn't
the
looking at
baby's
the.
been crying in the corner, and I've been just I'm trying to close the
Oh
crib
wait, I
on
better
it, and I'm
check
like,
it.
baby, I'm doing a stream right now, please. But first of all, I want to make it. There's a funny. There are three things that I wanted to note from the stream. One person wants you to do a monster scream because you do the best monster scream ever. But hold on. There's a second person that made a
Okay.
really funny. So Scattered Terrain said that it's 3d6 worth of quests. I didn't get that. Is that why it's
Mhm.
18?
Mhm.
No
Mhm.
way! Oh my gosh! So Scattered
Yep. Yep.
Terrain, you are ahead
It's
of the
3D,
game.
and the quests are like you can play them individually as one shots, drop them into your world and play them, or it's a whole campaign. If you want to play it as a campaign,
And
it
that
all links up.
Trey G was asking if there were sort of like settings in it. Like, are you setting up like little areas, or is it like full blown stuff, or is it like little portable things that you can kind of put together, or
It's I'm not I'm I like to what I like to do in my games is I like you discover the world through the quests. And essentially that's what it is, right? There's all these cool little things to discover, but it's through the quest. It's not like, oh, here's 100 pages of lore about the
right?
book. Now here's the quest. It's like you discover by playing, right? You discover what the world is by playing. I call the world Graxel. I also have a cool name for adventurers because, you know, like in The Witcher, how they're called Witchers. That's just really
Yeah,
cool.
yeah.
Didn't want to call them Witchers, of course, but um,
Copyright infringement, intellectual
right,
property
right,
rights,
right,
all
right,
that
right, right,
silly stuff. Oh my gosh.
right, right, right. Um, I call them the Brazen.
That's cool. I like
Yeah.
that.
So adventurers are called the Brazen, and
Yeah.
you know, depending on how you're feeling of the Brazen, you either look at them as like, oh, these people are they go out of the we've never been out of our village. I don't want to be near them. They're weird, or they're heroes. You know, it depends who you are, how you look at them, right? And they're kind of like Witchers, like
Yeah.
you know. Some people like Witcher, you know, oh, I need you and you're a hero to us. And other people like, get away, you're weird. You know, you do these weird things
Well,
that I don't want to be near you.
I like the idea of that because I think what's
Yeah, I do
funny is
too.
that of course, it makes sense. Like, we want to celebrate the idea that our players are playing heroes or certain types of characters, but I think sometimes people forget about like the consequences of that.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And
Right.
it's funny that you mentioned that because like because I mentioned this before, like I was using Forgotten Realms to run with, I was running EZD6 in Forgotten Realms, and one of the things I was reading about Shadowdale, because it's focused primarily, at least this version, on Shadowdale. They were talking about how Shadowdale is kind of this nexus for adventuring, and adventurers are often welcomed, but then on the other hand, they're also shunned because they sort of bring some trouble with them too, and they're like actors in Los Angeles or New York City. You're like kind of like on the one hand, a very fine percentage of them are at the top of their game, but then the other 99% are just like buffoons trying to make it and trying to be like, but causing more
Right.
trouble than damage. So
Right.
I like that idea, the brazen. That's a
I do too. Yeah,
great idea.
I like calling him something besides just adventurers or heroes or
Yeah.
whatever. Um, so that's fun, and yeah, the basically the game kind of the first six quests are
Mhm.
kind of getting you up to speed. You're doing all these different kind of interesting quests, and then in the second chapter, the first adventure in the second chapter is called the Fallen, and that's when the big bad shows up, right?
Mhm.
So this meteorite falls from the sky, and it has the evil fallen in it, right? And so that his influences all, or its influences all through the rest of the game, right?
This is a great setup. I like, when can we, any possible date on the release, or are you still kind of like,
I was kind of hoping that it would be by the end of this month, but I don't think it's going to be. So it's possible in February, um, but it might be the month, it might be after that. It might be a month after that. But we'll see. We'll see.
and
Yeah, I don't think January it's gonna make January.
mhm.
Could make February. Um, but we'll have to see. We're making great progress. But yeah, every time I get new pages, from Brandish when he's
Oh
completed,
yeah.
because we gotta wait for the art to come
Yeah,
in, and
right.
he has to lay it out and all that stuff.
Right.
And so I'm checking it over and everything. It's every new page, I'm just like I said, I'm peeing myself
No,
with excitement
I I
because I want to get this out to people.
I again, like, I really love the way that the original book is set up, and I think it works really well, like as a rule set and just as like a toolkit essentially for running some very, you know, quick, cinematic, fun, exciting, deadly, but still like you can, it's manageable and all of that.
Hmm.
Is the form factor, like, this is a silly question, but the form factor for the adventures will be kind of the same smaller format, or is it going to be
Yes, it will be the
hardcover,
same smaller
softcover,
book.
or?
It's probably going to be close to the same amount of pages, actually.
Mhm.
It'll be the same size book, and we're going to have the two different covers.
Oh,
There'll be a soft cover version and a hardcover version.
I'm all for the hardcovers. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
That's what I'm thinking.
Which both are fantastic looking. I've seen the covers, so
Is
yeah,
it
more
is
excitement.
it this is another like thorough asking. Is it going to kind of match with like the negative space kind of picture?
Yes, yes,
Okay.
yes,
Oh,
yeah. The
it'll
black is
go
going to be
in
very
very
similar
well
to
with,
this. Right, right.
okay, on
You're
the
going to
shelf.
have like an image on the back, like very similar to
Right.
the first book, and then you're going to have a cool negative image, green
Uh,
negative image on the front.
I can sleep tonight then. All right. I was worried it wasn't going to match.
Right. And then the paperback will be very similar, have like that parchment look.
Right.
It'll have a little Scotty on the back with a blurb. It'll have the same thing on the back that the hard book does, but it'll have me on the back and everything. And the front will have like a more involved scene, from an adventure, which is just really, really badass. And then the EZD6 logo and all
Right.
that. So
Sounds
yeah,
awesome.
yeah.
Well, Scotty, I want to thank you very much for coming on the program tonight. I also, just so it's on record, I also want to just thank you for inspiring me. So I think I've told you this before, but maybe I haven't told the audience. So there was a period where I kind of got out of gaming for a while, and I was just sort of not feeling it, or maybe I was just busy with life and all of that. Like, I don't know why I thought life was more important than gaming, but I don't know why. Eventually, I came to my senses.
Yeah, what?
One of the things I sort of that got me back into it so many years ago, at least it sort of seems like that now, was when I stumbled upon your channel, like in the early days, and I remember
Hmm.
being really inspired, like really inspired by, and we haven't talked about it, but oh yeah, DM Scotty also happens to be the Craftmaster. And one thing we didn't really talk about, but inspired me, was stumbling upon your channel and seeing how you built your stuff and how easily and accessible it was. And that really, I credit that to, all of the worldly success you can see around me right now. My Daredevil poster, my cat tree, all of that. My curtained off kitchen because I don't want anyone to see how dirty it is. I credit that to you and like the fun that I'm having now. So you were definitely one of those channels and one of those people behind the channel that got me into it. And I really urge, like, if any of you are, just this kind of call goes out to people that aren't playing role playing games and you just maybe you bumped into my channel somehow. Um, this would be a great investment
It's
for
a
just
great
like fun.
introduction for people that have never played role-playing
He says
games.
introduction, but you know what? It's also good for seasoned people. I've been playing
Oh,
since I,
totally, totally. Yeah,
35 years.
seasoned
So
people can sit down next to newbies and
yeah,
they're both comfortable.
it
Yeah,
really,
they're
really
both
is.
comfortable.
I
Yeah.
wouldn't have Scotty on the program. I wouldn't be talking about this stuff. I bring on ideas and people and talk about stuff that I'm really enthusiastic about. Um, so, Scotty, with that said, I just want to say thank you very much for coming on and spreading some of your Scotty pixie dust all over my channel.
I love to be here with you, man. And
I appreciate it.
yeah, we're friends. The moment we met, we just kind of instantly bonded.
Yes.
We've done multiple things together. Like Matt said, he's played in my games, play tested my games and stuff. So yeah, it's always a pleasure to be here, man.
Thank you so much, Scotty, and thank you to you folks that were watching tonight. Thank you so much for tuning in to see the Craftmaster himself. If you like what you saw tonight, please do think about liking and subscribing. If you happen to be out at a restaurant or perhaps in public and someone perhaps leaves their phone on the table next to you, when they go to the bathroom, if you want to pick up their phone, open their YouTube app and subscribe, for me, that would be think about it. You could double
Yeah,
your
yeah.
subscription, like, and that would
Hmm.
really help me out a lot.
Yes, yes. Please
I
do,
I
please
would
do.
appreciate that. But at any rate, just so you know, next week I will be back on Monday. I'm gonna have Little Red Dot, January 30th. It's probably going to be an 8 or a 9 p.m. start, but that is still TBD decided. I was going to say announced, then I was going to say denounced,
Yeah.
then I realized it's decided. To be decided. So I'll keep all of you informed and let you know a day or two before the stream begins. But at any rate, from all of us here at GM's in the Machine and Manufactured Myth and Legerdemain and from Scotty and from myself and from Tiny Tim and my cat and everybody and Daredevil, the poster version here. Thank you very much for tuning in. We will return in another week with another GM. So thank you all very much. Have a great game and stay safe.
Yes, please do. Night, everybody.
Good night.
Have a great one.